everybody, Jamie Trull here, your favorite CPA and financial literacy coach. And today I want to talk about how soon you can get 2 PPP loans. So how soon can you get your second loan after you get your first one? I've seen so many questions about this. And honestly, I actually did not plan to make this video today. The reason that I felt like I needed to sit down and make this video for you right now is because I am seeing so much misinformation flying around the interwebs and YouTube and blogs on this specific issue, and I am concerned about it. And so I wanted to come here and give you my take on this from my read as somebody who has been deep into the PPP world for over a year now. This has basically been my living and breathing for the most part. And so I wanted to present a counter take to what you might be hearing elsewhere. And this is really kind of a beware, okay? I want you guys to beware of some of the things that you might be hearing from people out there that might be misinterpreting things. So I want you to share this around if you've heard other things elsewhere and you want to make sure other business owners are aware of this, because you guys, this could come back to bite you, and I'm concerned about it. And I'm doing this for you to make sure that you get access to all the information, because I know that this is really, really hard to actually sit down and go through all of the guidance that exists out there. And so you might be looking for places that are going to distill it down. But just beware of what you hear places, and know the fact that the onus is on you as the borrower, right? So just because the bank lets you do something, just because the SBA funds your loan, it does not mean that you're going to get forgiven for it. And it also doesn't mean that it couldn't possibly be construed as loan fraud later. And I don't want to freak anybody out. This isn't me trying to scare you. I just want you to be aware of potential repercussions and be prepared for those things, okay? So this is largely going out to my self-employed folks, because this tends to be happening quite a bit in the self-employed world, but this applies to other businesses as well. So we're gonna talk about, can you get 2 PPP loans within 8 weeks of each other, or how long do you really have to wait before you get that second PPP loan? And for some of you that may have already gotten 2 PPP loans in a short amount of time, this is important for you. I want you to hear what I have to say about it and my take on it. And we're going to actually jump into the guidance so that I can show you exactly what I mean. And I can also show you the guidance that seems to be being misinterpreted all around the world right now. So, all right, I'm going to jump right into the guidance and show you what I think. Okay, so this is, in case you're not aware, I want to show you guys so that you can read the guidance yourself. It's a lot, I will tell you that, but I'll show you exactly what you want to be looking for. So treasury.gov, you want to go to their Paycheck Protection Program site, and there is a ton. And so make sure when you're looking at any of this that you are looking at the date that is included. You don't want to be looking at things that are way outdated, okay? So up here, you're going to have information for borrowers. This is mostly going to be your applications and your forgiveness applications. There's going to be information for lenders. If you go through this information for lenders, what you will see is the fact that basically lenders are completely absolved of really anything. They don't have to do a whole ton of due diligence around these loans. That is why you have to certify all those things, right? There are things that you have to certify to when you apply for the loan. As long as you certify to those things, it basically takes the onus off the lender and puts it onto you, the borrower, if anything goes awry, right? So if you make a misrepresentation, that's what it would be called, on your application, that is on you, not the bank. So that's really, really important for borrowers to know that, and make sure that you're reading everything that you're signing and understanding what it means, okay? So now we're gonna go on down here to program rules. This is, you're gonna see some of the frequently asked questions, and one of the frequently asked questions is actually the one that continues to get misrepresented. We'll get to that in a minute. But you're also going to see a bunch of these down here that are for the different amendments. So right now, we are going to jump into first the interim final rule on loan forgiveness requirements and loan review procedures. That's the first thing that we're going to look at. And we're going to jump into page 6 of this. So we are going to start over here in the third column where it says payroll costs eligible for loan forgiveness. When must payroll costs be incurred and or paid to be eligible for forgiveness? In general, payroll costs paid or incurred during the covered period are eligible for forgiveness. For purposes of loan forgiveness, the covered period is the period beginning on the date the lender disperses the PPP loan and ending on the date selected by the borrower that occurs during the period 1, beginning on the date that is 8 weeks after the date of the disbursement, and 2, ending on the date that is 24 weeks after the date of the disbursement. So basically that's just saying you can pick anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks, but the minimum is 8 weeks from the day you got the loan. That's what your covered period is. Now here's the key kicker, you guys. This is really, really important. The covered period for a first draw PPP loan and a second draw PPP loan cannot overlap. The borrower must use all proceeds of the first draw PPP loan for eligible expenses before disbursement of the second draw PPP loan. That's pretty clear, right? If your covered period can't overlap and your minimum covered period is 8 weeks, then you cannot get your loans within 8 weeks of each other. And I will take it a step further to say if you're self-employed and you're only paying yourself with it and you want to use it all as owner compensation replacement, then actually your covered period has to be 11 weeks in order to get full forgiveness, right around 10.8 weeks, because it's 2.5 months worth of pay. And so it gets prorated. That's kind of the way that it works with the PPP loan is, remember, you're getting 2.5 months worth of pay. And so if you want to take it as owner compensation replacement, that means you have to take it over at least a 2.5 month period, covered period, in order to get it fully forgiven. So that's been noted in several different interim final rules. So we know that to be the case. So that means that for most people, you're if you're self-employed, you're probably going to have somewhere between an 8 and an 11 week covered period for your loan, but you can't have less than 8 weeks. And it says here really, really, really clearly, you guys, you can't have overlapping covered periods. Okay, so why does this keep getting misinterpreted? And why all of a sudden are people saying there's some rule change that occurred that all of a sudden you can get them within a shorter period of time? Okay, let's talk about what has led to this gross misinterpretation of the rules. Okay, so what we're jumping into now is the Paycheck Protection Program Frequently Asked Questions, which is routinely getting updated for new questions, right? This is not new guidance. They can't change the guidance with the FAQs. All they're doing is clarifying existing guidance, okay? So the question that I've seen all over the world, and I think what happened is one YouTuber made a video that pointed to this and interpreted it one way, and then every other YouTuber in the world decided that that was correct without actually doing their own due diligence on the subject. Not to throw shade, that's not normally my style, you guys, but I'm fired up about this today because it's so dangerous what's happening. So question number 61. This is the one that I've seen everywhere. Let's first read and figure out what the question is, shall we? Before we jump to any kind of conclusion. So the question says, to be eligible for a second draw PPP loan, a borrower must certify on form blah, 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 that before the second draw PPP loan is dispersed, the borrower will have used the full amount, including any increase, of its first draw PPP loan only for eligible expenses. Okay, that is what it says. When you go and actually are certifying this, when you are going to get your loan, it says that you will have used or will have used. Now, that's where things get a little confusing, but bear with me. So the question in this FAQ is not about, the timing here. The question is, how does the separate requirement that the borrower must use at least 60% of the first draw PPP loan proceeds for payroll costs affect this certification? Okay, so this is saying that 60% rule. How does that impact you saying that I will have used it all before I get my second draw, before the second draw is dispersed? That's the question that's on the application. Before you get your second draw dispersed, have you already used it, or will you have used it by the time you get this money actually given to you? Okay, that's what you're certifying. So it's just saying, well, what about the fact that a borrower has to use at least 60%? What if they are going to have used it all, but maybe they only used it 50% on payroll? Does that impact the results or your ability to certify that? Okay. So the answer is the borrower may certify, for purposes of the second draw PPP loan application, that it will have used all of its first draw PPP loan proceeds only for eligible expenses if the borrower has used or will use the first draw PPP loan proceeds for any or all eligible expenses outlined in the interim final rule, et cetera, et cetera. Borrowers should be mindful that failure to use PPP loan proceeds for the required percentage of payroll costs will affect loan forgiveness. So what this is actually saying is not saying you just will have to use it at some period in time. It's saying there's kind of like they've left out because it's implied, right? It's saying like, hey, we know what the rule is. We know we're supposed to have used it all by the time we get the second draw loan, by the time we get the money actually deposited. So how does that, what if we don't meet the 60%? What if we will have used it all, but we won't meet the 60%? Saying, well, you can still say that you have used it all on eligible expenses, but know that if you don't end up using 60% on payroll, that could reduce your forgiveness. So this has been so grossly misinterpreted by so many people that this somehow means that you just have to certify that eventually you will have used all the PPP funds correctly, and then you can get a second loan. That is not at all what this means. Let's go to the actual application and look at what you're certifying, okay? All right, so here we are in the application. This is what was being referenced in that FAQ 61, where they were trying to clarify, look, if you're gonna have used it all, but you don't use 60%, right, that you can still say you will have used it all by the time you get your money. So here's the question. This is important, right? We have to follow the whole train of thought here. So the actual thing you're certifying when you apply for a second draw loan is the applicant received a first draw Paycheck Protection Program loan, and before the second draw Paycheck Protection loan is dispersed, will have used the full loan amount, including any increase, of the first draw Paycheck Protection Program loan only for eligible expenses. So note, before the second draw Paycheck Protection Program loan is dispersed. Okay? An important note for those of you who are my self-employed people who are like, well, I'm just going to get the loan and pay myself, right? And then I will have used it. So, I'll just pay myself right when I get it, which you can do. But know that even if you just pay yourself the full amount the first day you get the money, your covered period can't be 1 day. It's still considered, if you're going to use it all for owner compensation replacement, it's considered 2.5 months worth of pay. So your covered period has to be that 2.5 months. And to use it correctly and to be able to certify this, you have to be able to say that, yes, I will have used it over that covered period appropriately. And remember, we already saw that we can't have overlapping covered period and that our minimum covered period is 8 weeks. So maybe that's you and you got 2 loans back to back, like 2 weeks from each other. Maybe you used a program that told you that you could stack loans. That's another, I have a little bit of a bone to pick a little bit with a specific provider of loans. I've emailed them on multiple occasions, which is why I feel like I can actually say the name, because they have not responded to any of my concerns or where I've sent them this guidance and said, hey, why are you still recommending that people do this? I'm going to show you the specific blog article that I am talking about that I take issue with, and also this company's practices, who it just happens that this company is now, according to their website anyway, the biggest PPP lender. And I believe that they are misleading people and potentially getting people set up for fraud, or at the very least to not have their second loans forgiven. Okay, so here we are from this company that is talking about how you can stack your first and second PPP loans. And this idea of loan stacking is not a thing, you guys. This is nowhere in any of the Treasury guidance. And I believe it is a misinterpretation of the purpose of the program. Okay, so we're going to scroll down a little bit because there is some information that's generally correct, but then sprinkled in here, how long do I have to wait after applying for a first draw PPP loan before applying for a second draw PPP loan? Okay. If you can demonstrate a 25% reduction in revenue in 2020 compared to 2019 and meet other eligibility requirements, you can apply for a second draw PPP loan as soon as you have your first draw PPP funds. Wait, what? Hang on, what? You have to demonstrate that you've spent or will spend the full amount of your PPP first draw funding on eligible expenses or before the expected date on which the second draw PPP loan funds are dispersed to you. Again, if you don't have any employees, then this can simply mean that you have paid yourself all of the first draw PPP funds. Actually, that's not true. Straight up not true, right? Because remember, to get it forgiven, if you're going to have that as owner compensation replacement, your covered period must be 11 weeks. If you're going to use the whole thing for owner compensation replacement, remember, it's considered 2.5 months worth of pay. You can't pay it all to yourself and just say, well, that's just 1 day. Even if you actually do that, you can actually affect just one transfer to yourself. You don't have to actually spread it out. But however you do it, in order to get it forgiven, when you fill out your forgiveness application and it asks you for a covered period, you can't say your covered period is 1 day. To get it all forgiven as owner compensation replacement, your covered period has to be at least roughly 2.5 months, which is about 10.8 weeks, give or take, so 11 weeks, or at a minimum, 8 weeks. And you can do 8 weeks if you use only a portion of it for your own payroll and then the rest on other eligible expenses, okay? In no way can you just pay yourself and then apply immediately for the second one. So I'm also going to show you an email that somebody in my audience sent me that they got from this company recently. And this, I think, sort of speaks to what we're seeing here. So let me pull this up really, really quickly. Okay, so here is an email from this company that was sent to somebody who had applied for PPP loans through them. So if you have used this company, then you may have gotten a similar note. So you can see here that this email is talking about that the company has seen an alarming increase in attempted PPP fraud. And they're sharing this with PPP applicants, okay? So what happened? Womply has received requests and subpoenas for PPP applicant information from law enforcement, including the FBI, SBA, DOJ, and other agencies. We've also seen a large increase in the submission of fraudulent documentation, which is causing us to deny or cancel applications. They will not notify you if you're under investigation or if we provide your data to the government. What is PPP fraud? If you lie on your application or provide fake documents, then you're committing fraud and stealing money from the intended beneficiaries of the PPP program. Okay, here's where it gets interesting, you guys. I can 100% see a scenario in which the lie, right, lying on your application goes back to that question where you checked yes, that you would use all of the funds before you received your second draw. Right? And if you got them 2 weeks apart, that's impossible because as we've seen, the minimum you can use it appropriately over is at least 8 weeks. So I can see them interpreting it as saying, well, you shouldn't have gotten it and therefore you lied on the application and therefore it's loan fraud. Again, I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I just want you guys to be eyes wide open. And especially if you may potentially not get this loan forgiven, let you know this before you spend all of that money thinking it's going to be forgiven, okay? So that is really the purpose here. I don't have an answer for what's gonna happen. I've actually written the SBA with my concerns, and I've told them the need for additional insight over what people should do if they find themselves in this situation and maybe misled by various places that they're getting information from. But I will let you know if I have kind of a fix, or maybe they will eventually issue some additional clarifying guidance specifically for self-employed people that will make this very, very clear. Because it is true that it's not written the most obvious way, right? But what we cannot do is pick small paragraphs that are meant to be about something completely different and twist them into giving us the answer that we want. That's not how this guidance works, and we have to look at the whole of the guidance in its entirety. So that is why I have been super fired up today, you guys, because this is something that I want people, you guys are thinking that you're doing the right things, you're trying to follow the rules, and I really am passionate about making sure that you guys are aware of what's going on and can go in eyes wide open and don't get in trouble for doing something that wasn't meant to be fraud, right? It wasn't meant to be a lie. It was just you were taking advice from, places that were misinterpreting guidance. So that is the purpose of this. Share this around, show it to other business owners who might need to know this information. I will make sure to subscribe to my channel because I'm going to keep updating you with information that I get back. I've reached out to this company on multiple occasions. They have not gotten back to me with any kind of reason that they are giving the advice that they're giving or any kind of backup for why they believe that it is okay. If they do, I will update and let you guys know. So again, make sure to subscribe and I'll let you know if I hear anything back or if there's new guidance that comes out from the SBA to make sure that you come back here and get my take on it just as another place. It's always good to get various different opinions on things and use your own, sense of judgment to kind of filter them through. But don't ever take things at face value, even things that you hear from me. Always go read for yourself, check the guidance, and make sure that you fully understand it yourself as best you can. Okay, I will be back for another fun installment. Sorry for being so fired up today, you guys, but this one has me reeling. But I will see you guys next time, and bye-bye for now.